You know that feeling when someone shows up for you just when you need it most? That's what Uber is all about. Not just a ride or dinner at your door. It's how Uber helps you show up for the moments that matter. Because showing up can turn a tough day around or make a good one even better. Whatever it is, big or small, Uber is on the way. So you can be on yours. Uber, on our way.
Meta acquires an AI company, but doesn't really acquire it. We're going to talk about the Merlin Instagram feed, and I'm going to talk a little bit about burnout and leveraging employees and productivity and, I guess, efficiency. Enjoy.
Stay alive. Go and play outside. I can't be cool forever, but I can stay alive. Jesus was a carpenter. My daddy sold TVs. My mom watched other people's kids and anticipated needs. And when we go down to get groceries, I would flip through magazines and I wish that I was...
Welcome, everybody, to the Age of Jeremy podcast. My name is Jeremy Quintanilla. This is a podcast about all of my business adventures and side quests and all the stuff in between that I'm sharing with you. So hopefully you can learn a little bit of wisdom, piece some stuff together, and not make the same mistakes that I've made building multiple businesses, such as 3T Warrior Academy, Blockheads, which is the company behind Merlin, the smartest way to track your crypto. I also own Q Financial, Freedom Insurance, and one of my favorite ones that I love because of entertainment and creativity, Age of Radio. And then we also have Q Financial. I love businesses. I love being an entrepreneur. And I'm really excited about where we're headed into the future. And one of the places that you can get more insight into where I'm headed into the future is on my Instagram channel at Age of Jeremy. In the broadcast channel, go ahead and follow that. And then also check out ageofradio.com to check out all of the amazing podcasts that we have that we help distribute, grow, and monetize. And if you're interested in getting your podcast on the Age of Radio network, reach out to me at support@ageofradio.com or go into the Instagram at Age of Radioverse and DM us. But let's get started with this situation with Meta that I think is just a little bit weird. This is an opinion piece in Bloomberg. Meta essentially, before I go into the piece to kind of give you some context, Meta's really behind in the AI race, and they're trying to catch up to be the best at it. Now, I did notice that they've added AI to Facebook groups. I'm really trying to enhance our addictive podcasting Facebook group. I saw that they created a podcast AI, and then I don't really know what it does. I haven't had a chance to really deep dive into it. And that's one of the things that I'm hoping to get done this week. But I was looking at my calendar. I'm like, oh my God, I have so much stuff going on this week. We're looking for a setter for 3T Warrior Academy because we're deepening our sales team and our sales processes. And May's out for the week doing an amazing event. I'm not going to tell you what because it's for personal business. If you want to, just reach out to May if you're in the academy. If not, I don't know how you would reach out to May. And you're probably thinking, who's May? May's our business owner. She's a business owner that I have businesses with, partner. She's an amazing friend of mine. She's CJV's life partner or like relationship partner, and she's amazing. And she's my friend. She's my good friend. And so she's out. So I'm making sure that we're getting these interviews done and we're moving the setter position along. But my calendar looks whack. Looks crazy whack right now. So I don't know if I'm going to get to play around with this podcast AI. But anyway, point is that Meta's behind in the AI race, and Meta essentially acquired Scale AI, but they didn't like acquire Scale AI. Scale AI is a AI company that exists, and they provide infrastructure. They specialize in helping organizations build high quality data sets to train machine learning models. Its core service is data labeling and annotation, which is a critical step in making AI systems accurate and reliable. What Scale AI does is, again, data annotation and labeling, synthetic data generation, fine tuning and evaluation, and rapid scale Scale Rapid, which is fast data labeling platforms for quick iterations. They do what Spellbook, which helps teams fine-tune foundation models for custom use cases. And then they have Donovan, which is a decision-making platform for defense applications, part of its push into national security and military AI. But so Meta went out and partnered with them, but it's weird because it's kind of like they're doing an acquisition, but they're not doing an acquisition. So it sounded like something that should have come from a sports desk. It's a $14.3 billion transfer fee for a young up and coming prospect as Meta Platforms Inc. looks to rebuild its team for the tough season ahead. The head coach is an under pressure Mark Zuckerberg, and the hot talent is Alexandr Wang. He's 28 years old. His company is Scale AI, and Meta is taking a 49% stake into it. It was confirmed last week. Were this an acquisition, it would be the second largest in Meta's history after its $19 billion purchase of WhatsApp in 2014. But it's not really an acquisition, so don't call it that, even though it bears many of the hallmarks of one. Wang is going to join Meta as a top executive tasked with running a crack team to build an AI superintelligence, sitting next to Zuckerberg at Meta's headquarters. Other Scale AI employees will join too, according to multiple reports. So definitely not an acquisition, just an investment that also includes putting the company's top talent on Meta's payroll. Meanwhile, Meta has been trying to poach AI talent from Google and OpenAI with the promise of 7 to 9 figure salaries. And this was according to New York Times. And so essentially, Meta's hardly a pioneer here, it says, as Bloomberg's tech Jackie Davalos mentioned in her analysis. This kind of squad building is becoming a regular occurrence. Microsoft Core signed Inflection, AI's co-founders. Alphabet Inc. hired Characters. .ai's founders. Amazon.com took on Adept AI's chief executive officer. On none of these occasions did they acquire the actual companies. And so essentially, rather than acquiring the companies, what they're doing is they're trying to pull the entire talent into their infrastructure and their team. In my opinion, I would which begs the question if they really see like the value in acquiring the companies, or if that if they can make revenue from that company in the long run, or if they just need the intelligence for the model that they have for how they're running their AI and what they're trying to do with AI. But the point that I'm bringing this up to you guys here in the podcast is because I want you guys to realize how effing important artificial intelligence is. And so I really, really encourage you to dive deep into Meta's AI, dive deep into ChatGPT, Anthropic, take a course on how to, create bots, how to create agents, utilizing AI from a personal standpoint, from a research standpoint, because what ends up happening with a lot of individuals that aren't brought up in the technology as it's coming out. If you're, say, my age, I'm 41, 42. I see it in millennials all the time. They don't like new technology. It's weird. It's like when we were growing up and we had the technology, we're like, it's weird that you don't like this new technology. It's just a generational thing. Every generation as they get older, it's a mindset that you have to be a first adopter of technology and trying new technologies. The problem that ends up hurting people in the latter parts of their life is that as new technologies don't come out, they don't learn them. And again, it can be sometimes hard to figure out if you should learn a specific type of technology as opposed to another based off of whether that technology is going to be here in the future. But I believe very strongly that how we're utilizing artificial intelligence now isn't going away, and it's going to be more adept. The other thing too is you might want to, I already own a bunch of Meta stock. I'm a big fan of Meta, not necessarily a huge fan of Mark Zuckerberg. Think that he's a fantastic effing manager though. I don't know if they're the most I guess they're an innovative company. I shouldn't say that. They're innovative in the space that they're trying to be innovative in, I guess, although they did buy WhatsApp and they bought Instagram. But with Oculus and their augmented reality and their Ray-Bans and that piece of it. So I think that if they really focus on how to integrate AI into those core product offerings that they have, I think that they can continue to be a very strong company. And it might be something that you want to go and research more about Meta, not just Facebook and Instagram and WhatsApp, but their Ray-Bans, their augmented reality, their AI, understanding their chat models, deep diving into it, so that you can understand what's coming into the future, because it's going to stay here. It's going to be here, and it's going to become more integrated, especially in social apps where we're asking questions, we're writing content, we're communicating with peers vis-a-vis social media. It's going to continue to be a really strong point. And again, the point of what I'm trying to do is I'm learning these things is to teach them to you. So like I use ChatGPT on a regular basis. I've built out multiple agents inside of Copilot through Microsoft 365 paid feature, that I have a tax robot or agent, I guess, that gets me tax information. I have an interview agent that helps me create interview structure for getting people on my podcast and to go through interviews. And so these are really great tools that we can utilize. My fear, though, is we're going to rely on them too much to think. I had a situation today, actually, where we used ChatGPT and it gave a horrible answer, or it was horrible. I mean, it wasn't a horrible answer. Like it just did it in a ChatGPT way. And then we just had to fix up and clear up some of the language. So it can be really good, and we should be using it. And then we go back into it ourselves, reread it, look at it, see if that makes sense, change it up. But it can be definitely used as a really good starting point. We just shouldn't really rely on it. We still need to like get really good, with the English language, learn how to read, get our literacy better if our literacy isn't really there. And I don't mean that in a negative way. Like I read at a much higher level than a lot of people, but I didn't start there. Before I read at a lower level. So I increased my ability to read, at a higher level. And I'm continuing to work on learning English on a regular basis so that I can communicate properly, because I'm running businesses and I need to be able to communicate with lots of different people. If I slowly just rely on ChatGPT for that, it may not always get my point across. So we have to kind of use them as tools together along with our own intellect to create what we want to create in the world. But I would just really encourage you to sit down and understand artificial intelligence and take some time to learn about it, how it's integrated into your Microsoft apps, how it's integrated into Google specifically on your phone. I've been using Gemini more to set my schedule vis-a-vis just telling Gemini to go and do it. Some of the reminders aren't kicking out to me, so I need to figure that part out. But the point is, it's a really good place to be. It's a really good place to start. And we need to do a lot more of it because it's not going away. And that's why I'm bringing up this article. Again, that's a Bloomberg's opinion piece. I recommend that you subscribe to Bloomberg. I subscribe to probably too many news articles. Probably could save some money there, but nonetheless, this was from Dave Lee. And one of the cool things about Bloomberg that I like a lot, that New York Times, I can't find that they do this in their app, is that like here by Dave Lee, I can get alerts from articles that he does. So if I find someone that I like their opinion pieces, if I like their journal articles, I can go in there, set an alert, and then get notified when their pieces come out, and then I can read it. Again, the reason why I'm saying this is because there's a lot of content out there. So as you're finding content, getting that content curated and sent to you to read in a better, meaningful way than you having to go and search for it is really important. And that's one of the reasons why I think that, I have some problems with Amazon is like a capitalist corporation and things that I think that they can do better. I like that they give me ideas of things that I can buy. Like I have the ability to not buy them, but when they do, something does come along and they're reading the algorithm, they know that I've looked at this or I've thought about this, and then they're pushing it back to me to buy or letting me know about it, a savings. Those things are beneficial because I can spend my time on either hobbies that I enjoy, doing novelty things that I, or on efficiency things, or on working more, or on building things differently. So again, all of these things, depending on how we're using them, can be for, very good purposes. And that's why I'm encouraging you to deep dive into these things so that you can find how they can benefit your life and what you're trying to accomplish while you're here on Earth.
This episode is brought to you by Polestar. There's only one true way to experience the all-electric luxury SUV Polestar 3, and that's to take a test drive. It can go from 0 to 60 in as little as 4.8 seconds with the dynamic handling of a sports car. But to truly understand how it commands the road, you need to be behind the wheel. Up to 350 miles of range, the 3D surround sound system by Bowers & Wilkins. It's all something you have to experience to believe. So book your test drive for Polestar 3 today at polestar.com.
At Capella University, you can learn at your own pace with our FlexPath learning format. Take 1 or 2 courses at a time and complete as many as you can in a 12-week billing session. With FlexPath, you can finish the bachelor's degree you started in 19 months and under $19,000. A different future is closer than you think with Capella University. Learn more at capella.edu. Fastest 25% of students. Cost varies by pace, transfer credits, and other factors. Fees apply.
We're always trying to get better at social media, and I'm always trying to get better at, how we're doing social media, especially from a brand building perspective and what we're trying to accomplish in the world. And so one of the things that was brought up to me with our Merlin feed, so if you head on over to Merlin Crypto, on Merlin_crypto on Instagram. And right now we're really focusing, Abdullah manages the X account for Merlin. It's fine right now. I'm really trying to focus on this Instagram piece of it because I think that Instagram is the main social media platform. And I think that it's going to continue to be one of the main social media platforms. And so I want us to really focus on mastering it, especially with Merlin, and making our brand come more alive on it and what we're doing. And so one of the things that was brought up to my attention today, which makes sense, is that there was no, and this is the advice that I'm going to try to, give to you. I recommend that you look at that. And I'm looking at it on my own feed as well for Age of Jeremy. But on this feed, there's just like the same type of content over and over. And that exists for a couple of reasons. One, and what I mean by that, so if you look on the feed right now, you see like a bunch of like Mario and Abdullah talking, or if you scroll down, you'll see a bunch of the Merlin spaces. Then you'll see Abdullah and Mario talking. Then you'll see just a bunch of the Merlin spaces. And then you'll see some of our conference content that we're starting to put out and distribute from us going to Bitcoin conference and so forth. But it doesn't give like a variety of what's going on, like from an organizational standpoint. You're just getting hit, in your feed from like, for the most part, from the main things that are coming into it on, the most current stuff. And so it may not make sense for someone to go to the feed and then kind of scroll through all the stuff because, if they just look at the top, they feel like they're just going to get the same thing, which are right now just Abdullah interviewing people. And so one of the things that can help with that is like creating a content schedule. And you might think, well, duh, that makes sense. But I think that we don't do a strong enough job in general, for me, for the reflection on that on our social media. And reflection is so important to see like what's doing good, how does it look? How does it feel? Is it portraying the things that I'm wanting it to do? And it's not doing that. So what we did today on one of our Merlin meetings is we went through and we looked at it and said, okay, let's just build out a really simple schedule to kind of get into the pace and see if we can see what this looks like over the next couple of weeks by us pushing out this other content in this different format. So that's like the number one thing. So like for the way that we set it up was on certain days, we're going to do reels from an event. On certain days, we're going to do Mario and Abs's live Q&A. We're going to do Merlin Space audio feed, the audio files from the Merlin Spaces that we post on YouTube. And then we're going to use other reels, and then we're going to use from different conferences, and then we're going to have regular posts some of the days. And so what should happen is this should really revamp how the algorithm's looking at our information. But more importantly, if you're coming from as a customer viewpoint, you can come onto this and see a different kind of story that's being told. Right. And so that's like the first step that I would just recommend to you and this is just me being, reflective on what I'm doing in my own social media and what we're doing on the brand social media. And so if we're able to do that well, then what should happen is you can get a sense of getting more variety on a regular basis inside of that feed. And that's why the content scheduling is so important, because it gives you an idea of what to be doing so that you don't have to keep thinking of that type of stuff as you're moving forward. And so if you're an individual content creator, you can do that for yourself. Like I've built these pillars out of what I want my Age of Jeremy brand to be. I have it in a project inside of X. I need to organize it a little bit more and then start doing it on a regular basis of that content regularly coming out and what I want that story to be, and kind of niche deeper into who I am as a brand what I'm trying to accomplish in my life and how it relates to that brand, and then pushing that content out there. So again, it's being more thoughtful with what you're doing. The second thing, and I'm not sure if I mentioned this on the last call, but we're also doing like one story. You want to keep your stories kind of going on a consistent basis. And in those stories, you want there to be call to actions for your followers that are more engaged with you, right? Because your stories are going to go to the followers traditionally more. And so those people that already follow you, that are already kind of bought in, when they're going through the stories and you give them an easy way to do a click to action, that's how they can do it from there and push them over to whatever the click through action is. And so again, if you're having those stories go out on a regular basis, then you're adding that variety and also showing kind of what's happening in the business more to your follower so that they can keep staying engaged with whatever the content is that you're doing. In this case, Merlin or An Age of Jeremy, financial and blockchain and fintech and taxes and, spiritual progression stuff, right? Which is weird. And then trying to tie all that together is kind of where I'm at and what I'm trying to do with my brand, right? But the point is that if you have that content schedule, you're doing stories on a regular basis, those are really good places to start, and just been focusing on one platform and getting it to where you want it to be and then going to another platform. The other thing is making and this is the third thing that we're working on. So our UX designer, who's also our really strong graphics designer and brand designer for like the overall feeling of the brand, he's getting stuff over to Dustin, so that we can kind of get and Josh, so we can get some better images that kind of tell what Merlin does, the feature sets that's going out there. So posts have a really good place in telling a story on your Instagram feed, right? So like if I'm talking about like some of the things that we do for taxes, like we're working on getting these different 401ks to put money into so we can get the tax write-off, but in those self-directed 401ks, we can go and say invest in real estate in that, where we don't have to pay any of the capital gains on it. We can get a loan from the 401k itself, and kind of get a loan for that real estate, and then we can accelerate the depreciation on that specific real estate. So if I'm doing that, I could build a graphic that talks a little bit about that and then push that out. In the case of Merlin, it would be like the feature sets. Did you know Merlin has a news feed? Go here. This is what the news feed looks like. You can actually also change what your news feed specifically, like you can go to the news feed, you can see all the news related to cryptocurrencies, or you can click your feed and see coins that are only relevant to what you own in your exchanges and wallets that are showing up in Merlin, right, through the dashboard. And so again, telling that story through the graphics that are on that main feed is what I'm trying to accomplish with that. And we need to do that so people can get an idea of what it is that your brand is about, and what its benefit is of your brand, what the services are of your brand. And those can be pushed out through these posts, and it creates this really beautiful variety about the overall holistic view of the brand in the main feed. And that's what we're really trying to accomplish with this. So I'd love it for you. If you have Snapchat me your thoughts on this. If you have which is weird because I'm just talking about Instagram. I guess a better way to put that, DM me on Instagram if you have any thoughts on this or things that you think would be really, really good for the feed. I'm trying to get more people to Snapchat me because I think that would be fun to Snapchat questions and answers back to people on Snapchat. I saw Gary Vaynerchuk do that once, and I've always wanted to have a large enough following to do that because I think that would be really fun. And so that's why I kind of push that, but it would make sense since I'm mainly talking about this Instagram. Go on Instagram, follow Merlin_crypto, follow Age of Jeremy, and then in the DMs, go ahead and tell me what your thoughts are or what you do to enhance your feed on your Instagram. I would love to hear what each one of you are doing, and it would probably give me a lot of great ideas. And let me know if any of these ideas you want to try out or you're thinking of trying out. And also make sure that you join my broadcast channel on Instagram. It's called Dope Insights and Updates.
Whatever the occasion, effortless elegance is right this way. Because Hilton brings you new ways to stay courtesy of the Nomad London. And it doesn't stop at award-winning dining in a space draped in velvet and illuminated by vintage chandeliers. know this day goes beyond with unparalleled personalized service and attentive hospitality. Oh, and did we mention the Nomad London can be booked using your Hilton Honors points at Hilton.com? Hilton, for this day.
All right. I want to talk more about productivity and efficiency, and that there is like a trade-off of working where you're not really efficient. And that's one of the reason why I keep talking about this is because being an entrepreneur, there's that mindset of doing 95 hours a week. And so, but the problem is that if you're doing 95 hours a week and everybody's doing 95 hours a week, based off of the research that I have found, which I'll talk about here in a moment, is that there's a point where you're super productive and then you become inefficient. And that goes for how many hours that you're working in a day based off of the amount of hours that are worked inside of a week for that, right? It needs to be like spread out across it. And that's how you would be like the most effective version of yourself for the work that you're trying to do. Now, that doesn't mean like in those the other hours that you can't be like working on hobbies and stuff that are kind of like work related type of things, right? But those hobbies are going to diminish if you're spending more time doing the other work that's also diminishing because you're not taking the time to go doing the hobbies and to refuel yourself to be better at life, I guess would be the best way to say that. So the first thing that I kind of want to mention is that there's this illusion of an endless output. So working more hours is not the same as, say, working better or being more efficient in the work that you're doing. And it's found that if you are more rested and you are more involved with novelty, you will, and by novelty, I mean like entertainment things and doing fun stuff that you enjoy intrinsically, you will have a much stronger output of what you're doing, right? And so what we've done in our society, though, is we've like, I guess, lifted up the people. And I was one of them too, that was like, oh, I'm gonna work 18 hours. I'm gonna try to get 100 hours in, blah, blah, blah. But then like, I was like, I'm just spending my fucking time motioning stuff and not like actively saying that this is the thing that I need to get done at this time that's really going to move the needle forward. It's just adding stuff that doesn't need to be added to your plate. And so when you cut, and what happens is because you're so exhausted and you're trying to do this so much stuff, you end up putting stuff on your plate that really isn't in quadrant 1 type of stuff or quadrant 2 type of stuff. If we're talking about 7 Habits of Highly Effective People, or as we usually like to put it, it's not like moving the needle forward. And so there is not an endless output that you can do. So many high performers overestimate their productive time and underestimate their cognitive limits. So if you really did research on a lot of people that say that they work 95 hours a week or 100 hours a week, one, some of them I've seen that their health is fucking horrible. Secondly, their output isn't really as good as it probably could be if they were being restful, doing their hobbies, having these other interests that fuel their passion and fuel their ignition to go back into the work, to get the money to fuel the hobbies and the passions and the stuff that they enjoy. It can't be like a constant, endless work. Now, that being said, though, again, I'm going to say this again, like as I make more money, one of my passions is games. And for starting nonprofits and getting those going, right? But then like at those extra hours that are added, they can't still be added. They still needs to be some give and take on some of the other hours that you're doing so that you're not going after this ridiculous max output on everything that you're doing. But that doesn't mean that those other things and other activities you won't be high performing in, because the way in which you're doing them might be more intrinsically beneficial for you, which means like internal happiness. So you might be fine doing those other hours and still being productive in the other hours that you are working. And so the idea behind what I'm trying to talk about, where you have this point where you keep working and then you become less productive, is essentially called the productivity paradox. So this was coined in the 1980s, and it was found because of the way that we're pushing technology. So despite major technological advancements, productivity gains still really kind of stalled. So the paradox now applies to personal productivity, and we're equipped with more tools, but we see less output. And that's because of the fact that we are kind of like doing more because we have technology. So essentially let's say I was working 70 hours a week, right? And then technology came along and I utilized that technology, and the idea would be to reduce the amount of hours that I'm working, but I still work the same amount of hours. It just might be on something else, and I'm not even more productive because I am just keeping it this constant 70 hours a work week. And over the long period of time, there's a rate at which, like I said, you're producing, and then you become less and less beneficial. So the idea behind technological improvements, and this is where the idea kind of came from, was that as technology output increases, it also loses productivity at some specific point, and then new technologies need to come out. But in this case, if we're utilizing technology, right, we want to use that to be more efficient, but not more efficient in the sense that then we take the hours that are saved from the technology and then pour them right back into more and more hours, right? Because when we do that, we still end up burning ourselves out. And so there's a Stanford study, and there's also, I think, another business group study that talks about this as well. Output per hour declines after 50 hours a week. So beyond 55 hours, additional hours produce zero net productivity benefit. So past that point, people make more errors, they need to do more rework, and their decision making really degrades. So you're not really compounding the output, you're just compounding the efficiency after that point. So again, the idea would be that, so this is how you kind of solve for that problem. So for your intern, like as one person, this is how you solve for the problem. So you pull yourself back somewhere between that 50 and 55 hours a week, and then you get really poignant or really specific on the hours that you're working that are allotted for revenue focused activities. And that's really it. The activities just need to be revenue focused. And if they're not revenue focused, you really want to then have the next quadrant of activities that you're doing being activities that would then push for better efficiency in the business that would make you more essentially profitable. And so again, people are like, well, you're always talking about capitalism and profit. I'm not saying in the sense that we're like doing this to create more and more profit. What I'm saying is that the activities that we should be doing in business should be providing us more revenue, or they should be going into things that help us create more revenue, right? And then also make the business more efficient to reduce the waste and expenses so that the business is then more specifically profitable. So that could be putting more time in innovation. So for example, if we're talking about Age of Radio, I do not work on the app every single week. That's ridiculous. I should be working on the app every single week, because that is the most important factor of driving revenue. I don't work on ad sales every week. I should have time slotted for ad sales every week. Instead, I have time slotted for other meetings, which are good sometimes they're not. So it kind of goes into this factor. Okay, well, you're doing all these meetings. Are the one-on-ones really beneficial? Could you cut those one-on-one back to put in these times for these other generating activities? In 7 Habits and Highly Effective People, and in traditional like task management theory, this would be called putting small blocks in without putting the big blocks in. The big blocks of the things that you have to be doing need to be in your schedule on a weekly basis. And those things are the things that need to then keep doing, because they're the ones that are driving the most productivity. And then everything else can be minimized down to that 50 to 55 hours and pushed out over a longer period of time. Okay. And that's how you do it from a personal standpoint. Now, if it still feels like, and this is the main thing, the second main thing that I want to talk about, or to this point anyway, is that the second thing is then you need to start leveraging other individuals for their 40 to 50 hours a week, because then you aren't the one that's constantly doing the 50 to 55 hours a week or the 100 hours a week. And now you have the other people that are working in the same capacity that you are at the other 40 to 50 hours a week. So in an ideal world, what we would do, right? And I'm not saying that you need to do this, but in an ideal world, what we could do is all work 50 to 55 hours a week. And then your high performing individuals, compensate them high enough so that they would be willing to do the 50 to 55 hours a week so that they would push the business forward. Now, you're not going to always find that, because that's a lot of time away from people's families and their hobbies. And I'm not expecting that to be a realistic thing. I'm using that as a theoretical thing. And then also for you, if you're an entrepreneur, I would say if you are an entrepreneur and you are not going to max output, which is the 50 to 55 hours a week, then you need to up that to that 50 to 55 hours a week, and you will start seeing a much better benefit. So what does that look like for if you have a 40-hour a week job? Okay. So this is where it kind of gets into another big problem. If that's the case and you do have a 40-hour a week job, then you should probably be maxed out at that 60 to 65 hours a week, because you're still going to be really productive. You're just not going to be as productive as if you pull back from that 50 to 55 hours a week. Okay. And I'm trying to look at this from all analytical data. I guess not all analytical data. I'm trying to look at this from a data analytical perspective, because we do too much without doing enough, right? Like we're doing a bunch of shit that's not really important, and we need to get those hours to a good hours where we can get the most output at the most efficiency, and then make sure that we're putting the most efficient buckets inside of that. Okay. So again, that's the Stanford research. Beyond 55 hours, additional hours produce zero net productivity. Past that point, like I said, people make more errors. They need more rework. Their decision-making degrades, right? So you're not becoming more efficient at more work. Now, that being said, you can probably get away with a few 60-hour a week, 70 hours a week. But like if you're doing it for a long period of time, you're going to end up having to be on ketamine and do a bunch of drugs like Elon Musk. That's all, and have sleep aids and things like that, which I guess, that's cool. He's the richest man in the world. I don't know if that's going to happen for every single person. A lot of that has to do with innovation, and it also has to do with having really good people who could run the business, because originally the idea is that you have multiple businesses, you govern a lot of the businesses, you look towards the strategic initiatives of those business, and you get other people who are then also going to work the 50 to 55 hours. I think if you have people that are close to you that are building a business with you, I don't think it's unrealistic to ask them for a 50-hour a week. That's my personal opinion. 10 hours a day, that's fine. And then maybe every month or 2 months, they get a full week off. Like it can be manageable, but again, that's not going to be for every single person, right? Especially in the world that we live in. There's lots of research. I forgot what country it was, but I was reading there was research that they did 4 10s, I think, and it changed the productivity level amazing. It's still the same amount of hours, but then they got more rest probably, the having the 3 days off and being able to get stuff done. Even though I guess technically it was the same amount of rest, it feels like more because you're not having to do that extra other work on the 5th and 6th and 7th day, or the 5th day, I guess. So what we end up having here in our society is not having like we have a weird nap culture in the United States, and I've changed my entire opinion on sleeping and napping. Just I guess as I've gotten older and seeing the benefits of it, it's like sleep is a performance. It's like a performance booster and a performance infrastructure, right? So like during REM sleep, if you get into that deep sleep where you're dreaming, you consolidate memory, it clears waste proteins out of your body, and it strengthens your decision-making circuits. And so it makes more sense that if we are going to be top individuals, that we need to get that 8.5 to 9 hours of sleep a night, right, on a regular basis, because that's when our body repairs and that's when our bodies can replenish, right? Like right now I'm running in a sleep debt of probably like 9,000 hours because, when I was working at the bank and building the businesses, I was doing so much. So now to sleep more, you really can get some of that back. You're not going to get it all back, but if you're taking a nap in the middle of the day, or if you're taking a nap on the weekends and you're sleeping 8 or 9 hours a night, you are going to be much more beneficial to everybody around you. Like not only is your cognitive skills going to be good, like if you're like, for me personally, I know that when I get more sleep and I'm like making that a top priority, I don't get mad as much about stuff. My blood sugar works a lot better. My weight goes down. My muscles build a lot faster. And that's just from my own experience of me like regularly trying to get these 8 or 9 hours a night, and also getting in the habit of going to bed at the same time, which is the worst thing for like sometimes at 11, I get like this boost of energy. 10 o'clock, I want to do something. But if I go to bed between 11 and 11:30, I like this morning I woke up, I couldn't go back to sleep because I slept literally through the time that I needed to sleep through. I woke up and I didn't want to go back to sleep. It was like I felt a little bit tired, right? my body's still getting over whatever was going on with me over the last couple of ways, getting sick. I'm always around a lot of people. I had a really, I want to say intense week. It was a fun weekend. I spent all Saturday with my grandparents. Then I went and helped Alex with his jerky business, Arizona backyard barbecue. And then I got a tattoo because it's Friday the 13th. And then I went and got, Alex asked me to go to a rave with him. So I went with him. I was out till 2:00. It was really fun. I don't drink, but I had fun dancing and jumping around to rave music and listening to music and being around people, because that's how I get my energy. But I was tired the next day. Then I went and wrote music. And so like I needed to sleep. So last night I was like, I need to make sure I get 9 hours of sleep. So I got 7 hours and 40 minutes, which is a lot more than I normally get regularly on a Sunday. So if you prioritize that and you have that effing discipline, which I give so much respect and such a shout out to Coach JV for that discipline to go to sleep at the same time every night, I feel like that's his biggest superpower right there. When I can get in that rhythm and I can do that, my productivity fucking skyrockets. So again, you have to get your sleep, and it's going to make you much more efficient and much more productive. The other problem is that the way that we view capitalism is that suffering equals value. Right? Right. So like we're suffering in capitalism to create a lot of stuff. But what ends up happening is when you should always choose your suffering. You're always going to suffer in some capacity, but the way in which we suffer when we're working and we're pushing ourselves past that, that's a different type of suffering. The suffering that I'm talking about where we need to suffer is like, look, you're either going to suffer by going to work every day and making, $60,000 to $70,000 a year, maybe struggling to get by. That's a really suffering. Or you suffer and you work the 50 to 60 hours a week, building your business, or the extra 20 or 30 hours a week on top of going to your 40-hour-a-week job, building your business so that you can suffer less into the future. It doesn't always have to be the suffer thing. It's more about suffering with purpose, and we don't really suffer with purpose in any way whatsoever, right? We have this idea that insight per hour is greater than, in modern economies, insight per hour is greater than effort per hour. So high effort, low recovery work cycles are inefficient and unsustainable. So we need to have like lower to mid effort with higher recovery, or high effort with high recovery, so that we can have much better output in a much better way, right? So like if you have to think, like, there are people that outwork people, and I know Alex Ramosi has this video where he talks about it is 100% possible. The outperformance of the outworking isn't necessarily based off of like the output that you isn't necessarily based off of the amount of hours of output. It's based off of what you output in the amount of time that you're doing the outputting thing, right? So if you're much more efficient, you're going to have a higher output than someone who is less efficient that's doing these other types of, has a different model for how they specifically work. So again, if we want high effort, we need to have high recovery. And again, I'm going to go back to the leverage. I know I mentioned it already, but I do have it as another bullet point, like a full bullet point. Human capital leverage is the exponential value that creates the thing that you want inside of the world. If the way in which there's two ways to make money while you're sleeping. It's by having some type of technology automatically be doing something while you're sleeping, or have people be doing something while you're sleeping, right? And making sure that their output is really good. So like, for example, Love Atoshi, he's our head sales guy. He's on a regular basis trying to get some people into the sales, right? He's doing the activity. We need to make him more efficient at that specific activity by me coaching him and doing it with him. And that's one of the reasons why I need to get my shit together around the revenue producing activities that I'm doing, so that we can then grow that revenue. But that being said, he is getting some of that output out there. It's now, can we make him also more efficient? And so because of that, I have now another me 25 hours a week doing this output activity, talking to people at Age Radio, trying to get them involved with the podcast, trying to get people on my schedule and so forth. And from there, we'll then start to continue to grow, and then we'll build the sales team stronger. Once we got dedicated sales teams, this 3T Warrior Academy completely changed. Why? Because not only are we getting money while we're sleeping because of the email campaigns that are going out there, when we're doing other activities, they're out there also trying to sell the Warrior Ascension program, sell our programs to get them into the 3T Warrior Academy. And that is what's creating our leverage to get more and more wealth, right? It's like you have to have more parts to the whole to get to that point. And so once you've mastered your 50 hours a week, now help someone else master their 40 hours a week, help someone else master their 40 hours a week, and then you can get this going. The caveat to that is that sometimes you might have to work your 60 to 70 hours while you're working your job, taking that money to pay them to get them going, and then kind of create this snowball effect of people that are working for you, paying them, paying yourself, and getting to do your business full time. That's what I had to do in 3T Warrior Academy. And that was one of the, in my opinion, one of probably the best decision that I've made in my entire life was to never take money from that, grind it out for a long period of time, working those 60 to 70, sometimes 80 hours a week that you need to do at the beginning of that, right? And then getting the people to create the leverage, and then it keeps going, and then you're able to move out of what you're doing and doing the business. Now, I will say that it helped because CJV was doing it full time. It's going to be a lot more difficult if you don't have at least someone doing it full time. So I'm not blind to that, but I'm just saying that, like, if I was also trying to take money and live off of it, it would have been much more difficult than it was to get it going originally. The other thing too is you don't want to overwork other humans when you get those humans working. You need to be mindful of what their output is, what they're doing, that not everybody's going to have the same drive as you. So our role as managers and leaders is to coach them to help make them more efficient so they can be efficient in the 40 hours that they have, and that they can be a part of building the business and getting their paycheck and so forth. There's nothing wrong with that. Sometimes people want to go to work, get a job, and they're the freest people in the world. I heard Coach JV talk about that today on one of our calls. And I agreed with that. You know, sometimes people want to go to job. They don't want to have a lot of that stress. They want to have their house. They want to play football with their kids or watch football on Sundays, play video games, have fun with their kids. And that's freedom to them. It's all going to be different for other people. And so as leaders and managers, we can't expect the people that are working for us to also have that same drive as we do. And that's okay that they don't, but then we need to manage them to that efficiency level for them personally and helping them reach whatever the goals are that they want to reach. So, one of the things, kind of like when we're looking to go back to sleep, you know, kind of like a practical strategy for this, sleep is going to be one of the biggest things. So sleep is going to be one of the biggest things. And then the other biggest thing is going to be entertainment or novelty or time. Okay. And so with sleep optimization, yeah, I have to do this. I suck at it. I'm saying what you should do. I'm trying to do this so hard, and I'm going to do it. I'm going to master it. You have to treat sleep like a meeting. You have to say at this specific time, it's blocked on my calendar. I'm going to fucking sleep. This is when I'm sleeping. This is when I'm waking up. It has to be a non-negotiable meeting. It's funny. We have non-negotiable meetings for everything else, but we don't have non-negotiables for our sleep. So that's the first thing. And to help with that, you have to reduce caffeine. I love caffeine. I'll have one more shot of caffeine here when I go to the gym. After that, I'll probably have an iced tea with dinner. And then after that, I won't have any caffeine. So I probably need to really cut back on my caffeine. Most people say, or data says, that you shouldn't have caffeine after 2 p.m. and that's probably good. So that's the first thing. Sleep, lowering the caffeine, getting really hard with your schedule, blocking time out, and doing the stuff that you're doing during that block time is the most important thing that you can do, including the sleep. And then you want to track the work that you're doing. Okay. So you want to track that. Like, if I look back on today, I had a meeting in the morning, which was super impactful for me, just because it was a good meeting. Could it have been more getting more stuff done? Of course. But the meeting that ended up taking place was really important to me because of what happened in the meeting. I'm not going to say it, but I had a good conversation with someone and it meant a lot to me that they shared that stuff with me. Then I had a meeting that was super beneficial, that I'm glad that we did what we needed to get done in it. And reflecting on it, I should have been more happy that we did get the work done that needed to get done in it, and then putting that off into another specific meeting. So based off of that feedback, so essentially what happened was we have a tech meeting every week, and that's to make sure that all lines of what we're doing for tech related stuff is moving forward and progressing. And in that meeting, Dustin kind of overtook the meeting. I'm just being honest. Dustin overtook the meeting, and we ended up signing up for an Apple developer account, getting that squared away, getting the Google developer account. It frustrated me because I still wanted to go over stuff in the notes, but looking back on it now, that was the wisest decision that we could have made in that specific meeting, because we had that time set aside. All we were going to do was review stuff. We would have had to set up another meeting for that. So getting that done was much more valuable than me just going over the meeting and looking at numbers. The only difference could have been was if Dustin wanted to do that during that meeting, I could have been like, hey, Dustin, let's just wrap these few things up real quick. And you're right, let's knock this out. We'll get it out of the way and we'll get it done. Because that was a revenue generating thing that needed to get specifically done. And he needed help with it. And so since we had that time anyways, we might have well have used it for that than the other things that weren't as impactful. So that was something that I learned from that I'm going to do moving forward. And again, this is why reflection is so important, because sometimes as leaders and managers, we make wrong decisions, and we can learn from every single person that's in our life, and learn from every other situation that essentially comes up. All right. And so the point is that when I look back on the day, then I had a meeting with Chris that was okay. I could have been a little bit, actually, no, it was, the meeting with Chris was going, and then someone wasn't able to get to it. So then I used that time with Chris to talk about something else. So super meaningful. So again, on the stuff that I've done today, it's been a completely meaningful day and very efficient so far. And so I just want to make sure that I'm reflecting on a regular basis on what is actually happening and how we can make that better, right? The people that succeed the most are the people that have the ability to be reflective on their life and aware of what's happening and how to really move their life forward. And again, prioritize tasks by cognitive demand and align them with your peak mental energy. And so what ends up happening for me, and this is one of the things that I have to do, is my peak mental energy is after 6 o'clock. And then it is between 6 and 10, 11 o'clock. Right. And so in a perfect world, if I could create the cognitive energy in those areas, that's great. But what I need to do is do my most cognitive functioning stuff or in the morning period of time, and then my less cognitive stuff in the middle, and then my most cognitive stuff again as the day gets into maybe the 4 or 5 o'clock. And, I get it's not really 6 o'clock, but breaking a day up in the morning like that, and then again, is not the point. The point is that either I need to change my meetings, or I need the time in which I do the mundane stuff and the time in which that I do the cognitive functioning stuff. And that's why that's important. The other thing that can be done is, and this is kind of a sidetrack off of this, is that you could also do a lot of stuff to reset how you perceive time. So time perception gets messed up because of the fact that we get into a straight alignment with all the stuff that we're doing on a regular basis. So it makes it feel like time flies. So every Monday I get up, I do my meeting with John, I do a partial meeting with Mayfair Insurance, I do a meeting with the tech team, I eat lunch, I do 2.5 hours of meetings with Merlin. I then record this podcast. Then I do JV's podcast. This podcast is supposed to be recorded on the weekends, but sometimes I can't get to it because I have other stuff that's going on. So a thing that I could do is find a block time on the weekend where I'm going to do this. And then it gives me this last part of the day to do more cognitive things going into that 5 or 6 o'clock before I go to the gym, right? I like trying to get to the gym between 5 and 6 o'clock, and I'm happy with that, right? If I can't, then I get a little bit frustrated and then I get angry, but that 5 to 6 o'clock is good. I'm working out. I'm getting the best part of my workout right after 6 o'clock when my energy kicks back up again. And then I get to come home and maybe do some of my hobby stuff. Okay. So the thing that we can do is occasionally, right, with our mundane stuff, we need to break out some of that mundaneness, and that changes our perception of time, and it slows down the movement of time. If you're constantly in a repetitive thing, not trying new things, not doing new hobbies, not reading new books, then what ends up happening is your perception of time just becomes so remote that it feels like time is flying by. But when you break it up with new experiences, trying new things, you can reflect back on those things and the years seem longer than they normally would have because of the new interesting things that are happening. And so, for example, that's one of the reasons why I decided to go to the rave with Alex, why I'm doing another rave, why I invited CJV to a movie this weekend to go see something with his son, is because, again, if you're constantly just doing the mundane, which we have to do because that's what helps makes us successful. But if you break out of it every once in a while and you do new stuff, then you can really change that distortion of that perception of time, and that you can then feel like you're doing, you can look back and see on the things that you've actually done, which is another great thing that I learned from listening to a podcast. The Speaking of Psychology podcast is another thing that we can do is we can actually, instead of having a to-do list, we can have a to-do list still because we need to get stuff done, but then we can have a to-done list. And then you can look throughout the year at this to-done list of all the things that you've gotten done throughout the year and be like, man, I got a lot of stuff done this year. And what that does is it changes your perception of time going by so fast because you're reflecting and looking on what you've done. The other tool that I try to do is at night, what I try to do is I try to close my eyes and think about everything that I did during that day. And again, sometimes that's difficult because the day's so like repetitive that you can just think through it really quick. But now if I think back on everything that happened over the weekend, it slowed down time because it got me out of my regular everyday movement of what I'm doing. Right. And then also what that does is it can recharge us, and then we can be more effective at work, and we can feel better about the work because it doesn't feel like life is just passing us by. Okay. So again, I would say if there's anything to take away from this, one, learn to block your time, prioritize sleep, and only max out your hours between 50 and 55 hours a week. If you are working 50 to 55 hours a week and you feel like you're not doing anything, it's because you're doing too many things that aren't important. And that's the same. Every time I do this reflection, I get better at it every single year. I find that there's still more things that I'm doing that are meaningless, and I need to be doing much more meaningful things and pushing people towards doing some more of the meaningful things that we need to get done. And if you're a business owner, the most meaningful things, innovating to create revenue, I guess, innovating revenue, generating things, creating revenue, and then figuring out ways to reduce expenses, which increase that profit. If you can master your activities around making those two things happen, right? Giving more preference to the first one, the revenue driving thing, then you will start to see that the things that you are doing are beneficial because you're starting to be able to monetize it because of the amount of revenue that you're getting and being able to see that. So again, this is just, again, my reflection of things that I'm doing, and I'm just sharing with you so that you can take some of these things so that you can improve your life and your business and create generational wealth for your tribe and or your family. And remember, be thankful, grateful, and kind. We'll talk to you next time. Bye. Thank you so much for listening to The Age of Jeremy. If your podcatcher allows you to, please rate and share this podcast with a friend. That would be amazing. And if you are not subscribed to the podcast, make sure that you subscribe to the podcast. If you want to get a hold of me, reach out to me on Instagram or Snapchat. You can also join my Dope Insights and Updates channel on Instagram, my broadcast channel. The opening song was by Medium Build, Can't Be Cool Forever. Closing song was Mutable by Spanish Love Songs. I'm recording into a Neumann microphone, into a Zoom L8, utilizing Steinberg's Cubase, and I use Waves plugins in post. And with that, one last time, be thankful, grateful, and kind. We'll talk with you soon. Bye.